And I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the New Jersey Statewide Dam Removal Partnership, which I will just refer to as the partnership going forward. As many of you know, since you've been here for all four of these, many have been here for all four, so this will sound a little bit repetitive, but for those new folks, the partnership is a collaboration of nonprofits and government agencies that seeks to advance removal of antiquated, dangerous, or ecologically detrimental dams. Its members meet quarterly to discuss beneficial dam removal projects and to exchange information regarding policy, regulatory issues, funding, and the practical considerations of dam removal. The partnership also provides information to the public about how dams and dam removals may affect their communities and their lives. Our goal for today is that folks leave with an understanding of dam removals, and in this case, the overall or available funding mechanisms for dam removal, and that we have a better understanding of what it is that folks working on dam removals in New Jersey need in terms of funding information. I'd like to remind everyone to please mute yourself. Please, as we go along, hold your questions, and we will put the questions in the chat as we go along, and Michelle and Eric will help to collect those questions, and we'll just go ahead and answer those all at once at the end. So you should have plenty of time left at the end for questions. My screen is not advanced. Oh, there we go. Okay. So our speakers for today are listed here. We'll talk to them in this order. Everyone has a whole bunch of information to share about their particular funding program. And then at the end, we hope to have a broader discussion where folks on the phone can add some ideas or some funders that they may have used or heard about, so that we can all leave today with a good idea of what's out there in terms of funding. We're going to start today with Erin Lewis from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, who's going to talk to us about some of their programs that can be used for dam removal.
Perfect. Thank you, Beth. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. Just to introduce myself, I am Erin Lewis. I'm the program coordinator for Northeast Regional Programs here at the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And I work with Program Manager Claire Flynn and Program Director Rachel Dawson to implement the Delaware River program. So we actually have two separate programs within the Delaware River program, the first being the Delaware River Restoration Fund, and the second, the Delaware Watershed Conservation Fund. So the Delaware River Restoration Fund is very water quality focused and only funds projects in specific geographies. So the most applicable funding source for dam removal throughout the watershed is going to be the Delaware Watershed Conservation Fund, or the DWCF for short, and that's what I'm going to speak about today. The DWCF is administered by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And within the DWCF grant opportunity, the projects that we fund are intended to help deliver the priorities that are laid out in the Delaware River Restoration Partnership and Program Framework. And these priorities and the framework were developed in 2017 by a broad group of stakeholders and by watershed partners in response to the Delaware River Basin Conservation Act that was signed into law in late 2016. The DWCF was launched in late 2018, and we have since awarded over $17 million in funding to 91 projects, generating over $34 million in matching funds. And these projects will restore 16.5 miles of riparian habitat, open 57.5 miles of stream for fish passage improvements, conserve and enhance 297 acres of wetland habitat, and restore 251 acres of floodplain within the Delaware River watershed. The goal of the DWCF grant opportunity is to restore and conserve natural areas, corridors, waterways, and natural fish and wildlife habitats within the Delaware River watershed. So to support this goal, we fund projects within 4 strategic program areas, or 4 main categories. And our first focus is sustaining and enhancing fish and wildlife habitat. Projects in this category could include removal of barriers to fish passage and restoring in-stream habitat and stream banks integrated areas, which is the main topic of today's webinar. The second strategic program area or category is improvement and maintenance of water quality for fish, wildlife, and people. And conservation work in this category could include projects implementing best management practices to reduce non-point pollution and sedimentation from agricultural, municipal, or urban landscapes. Our next category is for projects that sustain and enhance water management, such as restoration of riparian corridors to improve habitat and reduce flooding, or projects that maintain flow and salinity objectives at key locations. And lastly, we also fund projects that improve outdoor recreation opportunities in the Delaware River Basin. That includes boating, fishing, and birding, and also increasing public river access. And something important to note as well, projects with activities that have co-benefits or address multiple goals or multiple categories can also increase the competitiveness of the applications within the DWCF. Generally, the DWCF grants range from $50,000 to $500,000, and projects are required to have a one-to-one non-federal match component, but we do offer a look-back period to July 2018 for matching contributions. So in other words, we will accept match dating back to before the project start date, but after July 2018. We do largely focus on implementation projects that support on the ground work, but just something to note, planning projects are eligible if they demonstrate a commitment to on the ground actions following the planning activities being proposed. So our request for proposals will be released in early February 2021. So if you'd like to look into applying to our 2021 RFP, or if you just have general questions about the program, you can go to nifwif.org/programs/Delaware River program listed on the slide, or you can contact any of our program staff listed at the emails provided on the slide as well. My email isn't currently on there, but you can also follow up with me directly as well. And I'll put my email address in the chat so that you all have access to it. And we do strongly encourage anyone thinking about applying to reach out once the RFP opens to discuss potential project ideas. And that just about wraps it up for me. So thank you so much for having me.
Okay, thanks very much, Erin. And I think Erin brought up a couple of points that would be useful to keep in your mind as we hear from the other funders. I know that we have a wide range of experiences in our attendees today. So you see how Erin breaks it down into a variety of different things that might make your project eligible. So that's that's an important thing. You don't have to hit all 4 of these things, or any funder in general. You don't have to hit the full suite, but the more that you can make your project attractive to a particular funder, the better. And you might find out that there is not a match between you and a particular funder. And the other thing that Erin brought up that might help to define is the idea of a match. Many funders will require that, they don't want to be the only one funding the job, so they're going to require some other funding into place. And sometimes they ask that is non-federal funding. And some of our presenters, including our next one of the biggest values of the program is that this is non-federal money, so it can use to help you to bring in some other federal money from federal programs. So with that, I'm going to introduce John King. I don't know if Stacy, if you're co-presenting, I have you both on the agenda, but John King and Stacy McEwen are here today from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Office of Natural Resource Management. Sorry, restoration, not management.
Thank you, Beth. There we are. I'm John King. I am with the New Jersey DEP Office of Natural Resource Restoration. Our program has recovered over $750 million and preserved over 6,000 acres of land, in addition to, removing dams, creating parks, and restoring large areas. Next slide, please. I just wanted to briefly address this. The authority for addressing injuries to the public's natural resources stems mainly from this public trust doctrine. This common law doctrine provides that public lands, waters, and living resources are held in trust by the government for the benefit of its citizens. The DEP has additional authority to address natural resource injuries under some of these other statutes that I've listed here. As a trustee, the DEP is authorized to seek compensation for these injuries to natural resources through either legal means or like a cooperative settlement. Next slide, please. So we have, like I said, we've got, we bring in a lot of money, but we are limited in the ways that we can actually get that money out there. So I've identified several pathways or options here for funding restoration projects. The first one, definitely our preferred method, would be just to negotiate with a responsible party and have them design and or construct the particular restoration project with our office oversight. I've listed here several of the dam removal projects that have been funded this way. The Robert Street Dam, the Nevius Dam, the Calco Dam, I believe they were all done by the same responsible party, both designed and removed. And also the Weston Causeway Dam on the Millstone. In addition to those dam removals, we are currently working, we have a responsible party designing a rock ramp at the Island Farm Weir on the Raritan with the construction to follow. The second opportunity would be grant programs. ONRR can solicit grant opportunities for restoration projects. We recently offered a grant opportunity for projects on the Paulins Kill and the Pequest River. I believe it was for $8 million. We're hoping to make those awards by, I believe it's mid or late March of 2021. So we're very anxious to see what comes out of that. The third option that we have for funding these types of projects would be have ONRR. We would take the lead on design and or construction of a restoration project utilizing approved contractors. The DEP has a remedial design contract that we are able to tap into. I believe there's 2 approved vendors that we have, and I don't believe we've really ever done this before, but we did recently, through this method, we did complete the design for the removal of the Paulina Dam in Blairstown. But that's probably the only time that I really recall us going down that route. It's a good route to go through, but we're a small office and we just don't really have the manpower to take on a lot of these projects and be as involved as is required going this route. But it is an option, and like I said, we recently tried it with the design of the Paulina Dam, and we may be trying it again in the future. And the fourth option we have is to partner with a federal trustee for restoration projects. I believe this is how we contributed to the Columbia Dam removal project. We partnered with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and also ONRR is currently partnering with the Army Corps on the removal of the Bloomsbury Dam on the Musconetcong. So those are really the 4 main pathways we have to fund these types of restoration projects. I say restoration projects, we're talking about dam removals. ONRR has always kind of felt like a dam removal project, always gives us our biggest bang for our buck. So we're always interested in dam removal projects. I did throw on at the end here just 3 quick slides. If you want to advance, just to have some something a little more entertaining. I just threw in three photos from our Robert Street Dam removal. Here's the initial breach. You can see there. And then the next slide is showing the impoundment just upstream of the dam prior to removal. And you can see the condition there. And I want to thank John Jango for the previous slide and this slide. He was very instrumental in all of those dam removals on the Raritan. And then the last slide is just from a similar spot. I'm not sure exactly if it's the exact same spot, but a shot of upstream of the dam after removal. Just wanted to show that. And I think that wraps it up for me.
Okay, John, you want to put your website, the ONRR website, into the chat?
I'm so technically challenged. I'm going to maybe ask if Stacy could maybe do that. One of us will get it up there in the chat.
I can get it up there.
I
Thanks,
apologize.
Stacy. Thank you. Okay, so that brings up Evan Madlinger with the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Services to talk a little bit about their programs.
Thanks, Beth. So yeah, I'm Evan Mather. I'm a biologist with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. It's part of USDA. For those of you that may not be too familiar, and we typically are kind of known to be focused on ag and soil erosion and those kind of things. But in New Jersey and really in all states, we do also focus on a lot of wildlife forestry type stuff and water quality, and dam removal kind of fits in that here. I heard that the woman before who was from Pennsylvania listening in. So, I'm kind of talking about New Jersey, but, we are a federal agency, so we cover every county in the United States. So what I'm going to talk about is relevant. There might be a few differences here or there, but it'll still be relevant if you're in a different state. So you can go on to the next slide there, Beth, if you want. So I kept it pretty simple. A lot of times when I get asked to talk about our programs, we can kind of get buried in all the weeds and the technicalities and the different acronyms. And I am going to go over kind of our 3 most popular programs here. But the bottom line is that, if any of this sounds interesting, as I mentioned, we cover every county in the United States. So, the best bet's to get to your local office, talk to them. You can find it easily online. You just Google NRCS New Jersey, NRCS New York, NRCS Pennsylvania, it'll come right up, and you can find out where your local offices are. So, in New Jersey, our main cost share programs, the big number 1 program is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. We can refer to it as EQIP. Generally here in New Jersey, we get $5 to $6 million for that program, but it covers everything. It covers, livestock operations, soil erosion, irrigation, water, irrigation, water management type things. But we also fund a lot of wildlife and forestry and stream type projects in New Jersey, particularly because our landowners, we do have a lot of farmers, but we also kind of have a lot of non-traditional landowners who are interested in a lot of different things. So this is the big program that we fund a lot of that with. The caveat here, NRCS is really geared towards funding private land. That's where we focus. We do kind of have a broad definition of private land, where this includes profits, and we can even do work on state lands if there's a lease. So for instance, a lot of times farmers will have a lease on a state piece of property, and we can still help cost share and do good things environmentally on that with that farmer or with that landowner, or sometimes with a nonprofit. Sometimes we'll have a nonprofit get a management agreement on state land, and then we can do some work. We cannot work on federal land, that's for sure. So, and there also has to be some tied agriculture with EQIP. So typically where this comes into play with dam removal is, ideally it would be a dam that's, out in the country associated with some agricultural land. It can also be associated with forested land, even land that's eligible to be forested or eligible, maybe like, for instance, Columbia Lake was a wildlife management area, but it was, had a lot of woods around it. And we were able to say, well, that's forested land. Where EQIP gets a little tougher is when you're in a dam that might be in like an urban center, or, if you have a dam in a county park and there's really just no tie to forestry or agriculture. That gets a little more difficult to work on there. But again, that's something we could talk to you about and see if we can work through it. The other limitation with EQIP a little bit is the cap has been around $450,000 per farm bill. So we get our funding from conservation dollars in the farm bill. The farm bill lasts, it's about every 7 years or so they do a new farm bill. So during that period, you're only allowed, any one entity can only get $450,000 with this program. And, with dam removals, that can be quite expensive. So, that could be a limitation sometimes. But every year, typically it's, towards the end of October. I think this year it's stretched to November. But you can apply anytime. So you can even apply now. The problem is, like I said, we kind of group up the applications in one shot, and that's typically in the fall. So if you apply now, it'll kind of sit there until next fall when we look at it. But we can have some dialogue back and forth then and make sure your ducks are in a row. So when the fall comes, you're ready to hit the ground running with funding. There is a slight chance too, and why it's always good to apply is sometimes if we don't spend all our money or we run out, we do rank these. This is a competitive program, so we rank different projects against each other. And if we still have some money left over after that first round, we may announce a second sign up. So if your application's sitting there, you're right there for that second sign up. So always good to apply. And again, you would do that through your local office. For this case, dam removals, you could even reach out to me. I can help you figure out who your local office is. The second program is a little bit bigger, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP. And really, there's some caveats to this too, but the way it's designed for a partner entity, a partner agency to come and say, hey, I'm really interested about X resource concern in New Jersey. It could be a watershed, it could be, a statewide thing, a bunch of different options. But I'm really interested. I want to bring some money to the table, and I want NRCS to give some dedicated funding, match my funding with some dedicated funding to do that work. And in this way, that entity or partner has a lot of ability to look at how we rank projects, how we fund them, and can really bring a lot of money to the table. This year for that program, we had $4.2 million in state here for that program. I think we had 5 applicants that signed up for this year. There's also a national program we can get up. I still think it's about 10 million that you can get for that. So you can get some pretty big money with RCPP. And in addition to that, there's abilities to waive some of those things we talked about, like the $450,000 cap. Also, another thing with our programs too, if you're working with a landowner and they make over, I believe we're up to $900,000. I think it's where it's at. So if they gross over $900,000 a year, they're not allowed to apply for our program. So obviously a lot of our landowners don't, but then we're in New Jersey and some do. So, but that's something else with RCPP that we could waive if it's a really important program. So this one, or RCPP, is a little more complicated than EQIP. There's a little bit more moving parts. So again, we can help you navigate through that, but it could be a good program when you look at some of these dam removals. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about, we call this ACEP WRE, so Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, Wetlands Reserve Easement. So with this particular program, we actually look at farmland that's wet and really shouldn't be farmed, that we can go in and put an easement on it and then restore back the hydrology to that, get it back to what it should be, a functioning wetland. So this has a little specifics. You got to have a landowner that's interested in an easement and find the right property. It also has to be somewhat sizable. We really aren't too interested in anything less than 10 acres because with WRE, there's a lot of expense that goes into the survey design, the legal fees, and all that. So we kind of look at that 10 acres as our break point. But yeah, this is a program where, we can fund it. NRCS will actually buy an easement off landowners, off the landowners, and put it on their property. It's permanently protected. And then the best part of this is we'll actually pay 100% of the cost to restore it. And that's actually based off the bill. So it is truly 100%, which is great. And again, it's kind of a specific program, but it is something that if it fits, it could really be a good fit for you. So to give you an example, we actually have funded dams with all of these programs here in New Jersey, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, and WRE. We just recently took out Burnt Mills Dam, and that was a combination of kind of those two. There was an easement there for WRE, and we had EQIP. And then RCPP, Columbia Lake Dam, they took advantage of RCPP for that. So yeah, all good programs. And again, don't be intimidated. Don't even worry about if you have all these acronyms right. You know, if you do talk to your local office, just say you heard me talk at this meeting, that you had some interest, sounded like NRCS could help, or reach out to the committee. That's what we're here for, is to help guide and get you to the right spot. NRCS is a partner on the statewide dam removal committee. So I go to all the meetings. So anyway, and I think that's it, Beth. Kind of short and sweet.
Okay, thanks very much. And I can vouch for the fact that if if you think you have a good idea, you don't have to, worry about wading through pages and pages of program, explanation. You can call up, explain it. They'll kind of be able to guide you as to whether or not you have a good fit and which program you want to apply for. So that will let us transition to Russ Furnari, who is going to talk to us about the Corporate Wetlands Restoration Partnership. So you can take it away, Russ.
Okay, take myself off mute. Hi, my name is Russ Furnari. I'm the Manager of Environmental Policy for PSEG and the Chair of the New Jersey Corporate Wetlands Restoration Partnership, otherwise known as NJCWRP. The partnership is innovative public-private initiative aimed at restoring, preserving, enhancing, protecting aquatic habitats throughout New Jersey. Its focus is to bring corporations, federal and state agencies, non-governmental organizations, and academia together to both help fund projects and also network and develop opportunities for these projects to get a hearing and shared through a variety of things. I think if you heard a little bit already, and we'll hear a little bit more, a lot of times on the federal side, there are matches required for the federal funding. And this program grew out of a interagency federal program started in the early 90s. To bring the various programs under each federal agency together to sort of, use their different authorizations to maximize wetland protection and enhancement across the country. So that was the birth of this. New Jersey, we started in 2003, 2004. And we've been working since then on a variety of projects, which I will highlight some high-level things as I go along. But the biggest part of this is the ability to combine with state and local funding, as we've done with several of the dam removal projects, to provide that match and make sure that the federal dollars actually get implemented in New Jersey. Which, prior to some of these, this type of thing, oftentimes was a difficult piece, particularly for certain aspects of funding that maybe a state agency, whether it's the DEP or a regional group like the DRBC, can't get involved in. And we try to cover that. We don't provide huge amounts of funding. Our top dollar is generally in the $25,000 range, but we've helped to advance quite a variety of projects. As you'll see on the slide, we have about 30 corporate members at the moment. As I mentioned before, we started in 2003. We have received since that, over that time, just over $1.1 million in contributions or in-kind service. And those donations have resulted in 48 projects totaling just over $16 million, which aided in the preservation of 724 acres and 35 stream miles. Some of those most recent stream miles were the stream miles restored on the Columbia Dam after the Columbia Dam was removed. So we have quite a few collaborating partners, many of whom have already spoken, like NRCS and DEP, as well as U.S. Fish and Wildlife and NIFWEP. We target a variety of things, most of them tied to aquatic habitats or coastal areas, but we consider the entire state of New Jersey, since it is surrounded by water except for one small piece that connects to the state of New York, is entirely coastal. So we sort of stretch that out a little bit. We've done a variety of things: marshlands, fish passage, reefs and shoreline protection, living shorelines, species protection, education and outreach, and important for this particular discussion, dam removals. We've completed 9 of those, 5 or so with Beth, both on Musconetcong and on Paul and Skill. Planning to do some others. There's one in the planning stages right now on the Paul and Skill that we're anticipating we will be involved in. And there's also one in discussion on the Musconetcong, which will be one of the larger ones that we anticipate we will have some role in the future as well. The interesting thing too, going back to what John King was talking about with the 3 dams on the Raritan, one of the earliest aspects of that, before there was a restoration funding plan from the state. One of those dams, or the first one, which was the Nevia Street Dam, was brought to us as a project by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. At the time, there was some discussion about it. We were ready to go ahead and help fund it. And the owner of the dam at the time was not yet ready. So there was a delay, but because we were interested, they did all the prep work to design what was needed to do the removal and then take that to the other 2 dams. And when funding was available through an NRD settlement, the person responsible for that was able to fund all 3 dam removals, largely because they were ready to go. And so, one of the things that we've noticed over the years through this collaborative effort is that a lot of times, because when the group meets, we talk about things and people network. There's been a lot of projects that have come up, been discussed, and then implemented, where we've actually contributed almost no money at all, in some cases none, like those dam removals. But because there was that effort to share things, and the fact that it was a mix of groups between corporations and other partners, those projects were able to get done. Those projects are not included on our map. And if you go to our website, which is listed here, www.njcwrp.org, you will be able to see a whole map that covers the entire state of New Jersey and shows where all these projects are located. And even on the website, there's even a story map version that you can link on, and it'll give you details about each project.
Thanks, Russ. I'm glad you mentioned the value of networking with CWRP. 2 exciting things about CWRP, in addition to the fact that it's private money and we can use it to leverage. Your application is very straightforward and easy, which is not 2 words you usually use with a grant application. And the ability to network, to go to those meetings and meet other partners is invaluable. We're going to take a quick poll right now, if you don't mind. As those of you who have been on these information sessions know, we've been using the opportunity to help us to get some information, both for sessions going forward and for just to help us to see what we might do to help build a better dam removal community. So Michelle is going to put that up for us. You all know that dam removal projects can be pretty expensive, so I'm not all that surprised the way that this is going. But again, it's very interesting to us to make sure that that's not a misconception. So looks like about another 10 or so of you, if you wouldn't mind. It's okay to say I don't know. Looking like 75%-ish are saying that yes, in fact, that is the biggest impediment to dam removal. Okay, looks like the responses have stopped coming in, so we'll move on. Thanks for helping us again to collect some of that info. Thanks, Russ, and we're going to transition now to Beth Friday of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Beth will talk about some of the programs that they implement in the state of New Jersey that can be used for dam removal.
Thanks, Beth. So my name's Beth Friday, or I don't want to be a Beth too, so you could call me Elizabeth. I'd like that better. But I coordinate the Partners for Fish and Wildlife program, which is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service's private lands program in New Jersey. And so all of the funding sources that you heard about today, we work with a lot of those folks. The spirit of Partners is partnership. We're not a go it alone kind of program. We seek to partner with you and whoever else we need to partner with to achieve really good conservation goals in New Jersey. I always say that we are the easiest, I know, I can still say, we're the easiest federal program that you'll ever encounter. We don't even have an application, right, CWRP? So, we still do all the federal compliance, but all of that stuff is done on our end, the staff's end. So we are the easiest federal program, but I think the easiest program to work with is CWRP. They're just so, they're fun to work with. It's a diverse group of people who are interested in wetland conservation, and they're great to work with. So they're the easiest program. We're the easiest federal program. I'll take that. Okay, so through our Partners program, and I'm going to talk about a couple of other U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service programs, but we can provide financial assistance. We have a budget to where we can provide some cash match to projects. We have machinery. So we have a mini excavator, we have a skid steer, we have an ATV, we have a sprayer. So we have a lot of equipment where we could do some work to kind of defray some of the cost of a project. We have a nursery, so a lot of times in dam removal is a real easy thing for us to do is provide plant materials so that when you lower the impoundment behind a dam, you sometimes have unstable soil, so stabilizing that bank is important, and plant materials is a good way to do that. So we have a nursery, we can provide those materials as well. So then I'll talk about the other two programs in my office. Partners for Fish and Wildlife is that middle, the middle logo. And we have a sister program called the Coastal Program. So that program does a lot of similar things that the Partners program does, but they're more focused on a watershed. And in this case, in New Jersey, we have the Delaware River watershed. So all of the rivers that are part of the Delaware River watershed, which is pretty much half of New Jersey, are eligible to work with the Coastal Program. They also work with private landowners, but the Coastal Program can work on public lands. They can fund research. So where the Partners program is really focused on that on the ground change, that habitat uplift, Coastal Program gets there by different ways, and research can be one of them. So that's another good funding source we have in our office. The third one is the Natural Resource Damage Assessment and Restoration Program. Our acronym for that is NERDAR. NERDAR is a great program. It's got some really skilled biologists in that program. Kathy Marion, who's part of this group, is the biologist for that program. And she's very active in this group, but she's on maternity leave right now. So that's why I'm talking about that program. That program works closely with the ONR program that John King talked about. And the NERDAR program is focused on watersheds that have an impact. So they have a responsible party, there's an impact in that watershed, and then they use those funds to have as much aquatic habitat uplift as possible. Dam removals give a lot of uplift. So those are the 3 funding programs. So NERDAR has their impact watershed. That's where they focus. Coastal program is focused on the Delaware River watershed, which is pretty much half of New Jersey. The Partners program, we work throughout the state of New Jersey. So every state has a Partners program. And so Nancy, Pennsylvania has a Partners for Fish and Wildlife program. Each program decides what their priorities are. It could be, well, actually for our entire region, aquatic connectivity is a priority for the region. In part because diagenous fish, which are fish that go from saltwater to fresh or vice versa as part of their life cycle, those are what we consider trust resources. And a federal trust resource is something that crosses state lines as a natural part of its life cycle. When that happens, it becomes something that the federal government is interested in helping. So that's a trust resource. Aquatic connectivity is really important to every state in this region. So Pennsylvania probably would identify that as a priority as well. The final one was, we had another funding source, which is the Delaware Bay Basin Act, but Aaron talked about that. It's administered through NIFWIF. And then the Fish Habitat Partnership, I think, Beth, you were going to talk about that one.
Yes, actually, you know what? Maybe we'll co-team on this one, because Tom Keller, who's the liaison to New Jersey for this program, is actually down with a cold. So I did kind of make a little mashup slide from their website. I'll tell you the non-technical part, and I'll let Beth fill in any of the other stuff. I have used this program numerous times. They have a cap of $50,000. Their ask is typically in September. The application is usually due around September, and it's usually spring when you hear. And they have a strategic plan. You can see the link for it on this screenshot that I have here. And it's one of those mix and match, sort of like what Aaron showed us with the NIFWIF programs, right? You're going to go in there, you're going to see, for dam removals, very often, for example, one of their areas of concern is riverine bottom. And then you also look in the strategic plan and make sure in the right geography. It's kind of a mix and match. But as always, never be afraid to reach out to the funder, because, the funder wants applicants. That's what they're there for. So can you think of anything else to add on this one?
I would add that these folks are fisheries biologists. So when you talk about the expertise that come along with each of the programs, our Partners program, we do a lot with federal compliance. We can handle that lift for you. NERDAR's program, Kathy Marion, she's a fish biologist, PhD, excellent resource. And these guys at the Atlantic Coast Fish Habitat Partnership, they think about fish all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they bring in a really excellent level of expertise. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service also has fish passage engineers. So we work with them a lot in New Jersey. We have a local engineer design the removal, and then our fish passage engineers will look at it from the fish's perspective. Like, okay, so we're taking out this dam, we're stabilizing, we're putting in a grade control structure, all of these things, protecting an upstream bridge, all of those things are great. And they make sure that we are gonna pass our fish, which is our main goal as well. So yeah, these are a bunch of folks who are bringing really top-notch expertise to the process.
Okay, well, thanks for helping me on that. I think we're going to do another quick poll, and then I have some questions for you guys, and then we'll take your questions. So what this question means is many, for example, an individual landowner may not be eligible for, I think, just about any program that we discussed today. Certain times municipalities are not allowed, or, you know, so very often folks have to partner up to be able to bring in all of that funding, right? And you can see that there's, I think on the most recent dam removal that I worked on, there were more than 10 funders, you know, not to count the numerous private donations that came in, but, you know, you are really going to be putting together a puzzle if it's, you know, any size of a dam removal at all. So, okay, looks like a little bit more than half think that partnering up is going to be necessary, and I think I'm gonna agree with that. Might even be a little bit higher than that. I'm guessing some of the I don't knows are going to wind up moving into the I need a partner once you start looking at the details on this. Okay, so I'm gonna just one of the things that we don't have a rep here for is NOAA, and I want to mention NOAA's programs, particularly the Coastal and Marine Habitat Restoration Grant Program. I did reach out to them, and they said that they don't think they'll have another round of that until 2022, which is why I didn't slot them. Actually, they chose not to be slotted in because of the time frame. But they, you know, they're another federal program, and they can also provide things like technical assistance, and they also can work through the natural resource damage settlements. So, you know, when timing is a little bit different or the programs line up a little bit better, we'd certainly invite them. Another great resource for all things fish habitat and dam removal. So what I want to do without before we start our questions, which I think is our next slide, is I don't want to like call anybody out by name, but I definitely know that we have folks on the phone or on the Zoom from places like EPA, DOT, DEP, FEMA. Anybody can add a program. You can throw it into the chat, or you can, I think, unmute yourself, and we'll see if that does not unleash chaos. But I am sure there are folks that know about dam removal funding that we have missed in our big overview. Are you seeing anything in the chat, Michelle?
Hey, Beth, this is Beth Friday. I was just going to add, and I was just putting it into the chat, that there are actually 2 coastal programs in New Jersey, which not every place in the U.S. is covered by a coastal program, but New Jersey, we have, like Russ was saying, like we have almost all shoreline. So on the western half, we're covered by the Delaware Basin coastal program. And then on the eastern Atlantic side is the Southern New England Bight program. And I put a link to that program in the chat as well. We call it SNP. That's our, you know, we got to have our acronyms. We can't be a federal agency without an acronym. So that one's called SNP. So that covers the other side of New Jersey. So the person who represents that program is located in, I think, Massachusetts. So she's pretty far away. But we have, all of New Jersey is covered by a coastal program. So if you have interest in an area that's not part of the Delaware River Basin, then there's that other program that you can look into.
Okay, thanks. Anything pop into the chat, Michelle? Okay, so
Beth, this is Eric. There were actually a couple of questions earlier, and these are for Aaron, I guess, for NFWIF. Where should people outside of the Delaware Basin look or apply for funding from NFWIF? So that's question 1. And then are DWCF funds available for design or construction or both?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are both great questions. So in terms of looking for funding outside of the Delaware Basin, we have several programs in the Northeast region, or even if you fall outside of the Northeast region, we have programs across the country, and I will provide my email address in the chat, and I can put you in touch with staff within each of those regions. I am also the program coordinator for the Long Island Sound Futures Fund at NIFWIF, and we do dam removal work in Connecticut, New York, up into the Northeast region. So we've got you covered more than likely. So I'd be happy to put you in touch with the right people. And to answer the second question, we do have funds for design and construction. And just to reiterate something that I said back in the presentation, if you are going to apply with a planning and design project, just making sure that you're emphasizing your commitment to taking those on the ground next steps once the project is over. And that's something that we can kind of hash out in a separate conversation offline, whether that be over email or we've also set up calls with potential applicants in the past to kind of clarify your project idea and get some good input.
Okay, I have a question. I think I saw Zach call from DEP on. I don't know if I saw Clint or not, but you guys have a loan program for dam rehabilitation. Is that something that can be used for dam removals? Or if anybody else from DEP knows the answer to that question?
Yes, it can. Either rehabilitation or removal. We do have a loan program available. Currently, the application period is not open. We hope it will open sometime next year. And what the loan is for a 20-year period. It's a 2%, so low interest loan. The deal with the loan is that the township or local municipality must co-sign the loan. And there's other details about it. If anybody has questions, they can contact me or Clint or anyone from our office directly, and we can get them more information. Our website also has information on the loan application period when it does open up. We always post it to our website. Again, I don't have a firm date on that, but it is available for dam removals.
Okay.
Hey, Beth, this is Russ. The other thing I would mention, I didn't see anybody from EPA on the list. I'm not sure, but they also have water quality grant program, 5-star program, and a couple of other things that they grant on, I think it's an annual basis that could, that can tie in sometimes as well. We've gotten a number of projects from that program over the years.
I do think there's someone from EPA on the call, but I am not at all sure what their expertise is. That's not exactly a mom and pop shop, so they can be they can certainly be someone who doesn't have that background. I'll give them a second to pipe in. So we do have one more poll. I'm going to go ahead and throw that up. While we this is a poll again to help us build a repertoire going forward of what sort of things people would find useful. I think we referenced like at least a half a dozen times in this meeting about how important it is to build partnerships, how these are not projects that get done really by one person moving forward. It might be a partnership between a town and a nonprofit and a private owner or a state, or it's really just a big mishmash. But I think one thing that is common with all dam removals is the need for a good outreach to the folks who live in and around the dam. They can be your biggest allies, or they can be a stumbling block, both in terms of actually getting things done and even in terms of slowing you down. And a lot of times good outreach is enough to put aside much of that. Okay, so do we have any other questions for any of our speakers, or for one another, or for us to get back to you on anything?
Beth, this is John King. I see a question kind of directed at me regarding, I guess, ONRR's current policy on nexus of an injury settlement to the location of a proposed dam removal. I'll just say that in New Jersey, we recently promulgated a constitutional amendment that generally prescribes how to restore the natural resource injuries. And the amendment requires restoration to maintain a geographic nexus to the injury. That restoration must occur in the immediate area of injury. If the restoration in the immediate area of injury is not possible, then the restoration must occur in the same water region as the injury. And if the restoration is not possible in these two areas, the amendment does allow for restoration anywhere in the state.
Okay. Okay, any last questions for folks? We have a couple minutes left.
There are no other questions in chat, Beth.
Okay. All right, then I'll let you know that we will be sending a link to all 4 of the previous presentations. We'll also be sending out a survey that will allow us to ask questions, you know, in a kind of a more fill in the blanks way, which we can't do in the polls here, but there is still, you know, a bunch of information that we could really use. And you guys are the ones who can help us again to build a better dam removal program in New Jersey. So I hope when you see that survey come your way, you can take a few minutes to do that. That might not be till after the holiday, because I think we're in that slide period now where everybody's just, you know, they're just making their way in kind of a frenzied state. And I don't want that to be one more thing to hit you before that period, but I'd say look for that shortly after the new year. Okay, and if that's it, you have 2 extra minutes in your day. But thank you all for joining us today. It's you know, these have been an interesting learning experience for the partnership as well as hopefully for you guys. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Beth. Great information.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Beth.
Yeah, and thanks to
Everybody have a good holiday.
all of the presenters. Thank you very much.
No problem.